Started in just a second here, so probably give it 30 to 60 seconds and we'll get going. Thank you. All right, looks like we're good to go. So welcome, good morning, everyone. Welcome Downtown Action Committee, September 11th, 2024. If we could just start with the roll call, please.
Samuel Grace.
Present.
Gregory Gabriel.
Here.
Roger Jensen.
Present.
Brian Chagas.
Present.
Michael Blisk, sorry.
Yep.
Dr. Brian Laura.
Present. Present.
Let the record reflect that Nick Mielich, Kim Doe, and Michael Blisk are not present.
Okay, thanks. And just before we get started today, since it is September 11th, kind of a infamous day in our United States history, just maybe let's take a moment of silence to think about all those that lost their lives on that day and those that did everything they could for the better of our country. So. Okay, thanks. All right, we will go to item 2, approval of the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections or deletions or vote to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. And item 3, report from city urban designer. It's Claudia.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Babin, City Urban Designer. I just wanted to update you on the Downtown Master Plan request for proposals. The deadline that we have for July, we actually received some proposals, but they came over budget, so we had to release another RFP, and the submission deadline is today. So we will keep you updated as we move forward. And I also have an update from Rick Green.
Good morning, Rick Green, Development Services Director. As you may know, Dodie Glass, who served as the Assistant Director for Development Services, left the city. So I'm very pleased to announce that we were able to recruit Anna Aponte, so she will be coming back to our department as the Assistant Director of Development Services. And I don't know if you wanted to say a few words, but welcome back.
Thank you, Board. I'm really excited of being back, though I'm going to be in a different position. Claudia has been running the downtown very well, but I'm really happy to be on board with the downtown, with the Development Services Department, and continue leading the city to great goals.
That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome back. Okay. Good news. All right, we'll skip down to item 5, declaration of ex parte communication. Does anybody have anything to declare on today's case? Sam?
No.
Gray? None? Brian? None? Okay, I did have a meeting and a phone call with the Glidden O'Rourke office. They were just explaining the project. That will not affect my ability to judge impartially today. So today's hearing, public hearing, item 6, item A, swearing in of the speakers. Anyone that will be presenting testimony today, would you kindly stand and be sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Great. And when you do speak, just use one of these 2 microphones up front and just state your name and address. Okay, that'll move into today's cases. Oh, yeah, I forgot to say, if anyone has any comments, there's cards you can fill out and bring them up front. We'll make sure that your commentary is heard today. Thank you. So it looks like we have one case today. Formal site plan review case number 23-10, request by Tyler Woolsey of Urban Design on behalf of Linton Jog Associates. And if we could go ahead and have a presentation, please.
Yes. Good morning, DAC Commission. Thank you. Members of the public. Tyler Woolsey with Urban Design Studio on behalf of the applicant. We do have a brief presentation for you this morning on the 315 South Dixie project. Our project team is here. We do have a hyper-local project team with Simmons & White on the civil engineering side, Spino O'Rourke and Partners as the architect, Urban Design Studio here as land planners and landscape architect, and brought to you by the Linton Jog Associates LTD as applicant. Our request before you today is for DAC special review of a site plan for a 21-story mixed-use building. The building includes 181 dwelling units, just over 14,000 square feet of office and retail, with an integrated parking garage and residential amenities. We're also, as part of our request, requesting the opportunity to utilize the TDR incentive program for the QGD 10 to 25 district in which the site is located, as well as 3 variances to go along with the site plan, which I'll explain in more detail towards the end of our presentation. For a little bit of context, the site is located, as you see here, squarely in the center of the downtown in the Quadrill Garden District, just east of Quadrill Boulevard on the north side of Fern Street. Here, for a little bit more context, we are at the corner of Fern Street and Dixie. There is an out parcel here that is not part of the project, an existing structure that is to remain, not to be impacted by the project. As mentioned, we're in the downtown master plan, so we do have an urban central business district land use. Our zoning district is the Quadrill Garden District, QGD 10. As mentioned, we are within the incentive district for the 10 to 25 flex for the Quadrill Garden. Here you see some of the existing site conditions. The site today is developed with a 1960s build, 2-story office building, approximately 40,000 square feet, just over 40,000 square feet of office space today on just under an acre. Here you see some of the surrounding conditions, existing buildings, the Whitney to our north, an 8-story mixed-use development, Avalon just to our east, an 18-story mixed-use development, mostly residential with ground floor retail. And the applicant team that is bringing you this project actually has received approvals for the development on the south side of Fern here, so there is a lot of synergy in this block that they'll speak to you about here shortly. So again, speaking to the overall development program, here you see a rendering of the building from the southeast. The development program for the 21-story mixed-use building does include 181 multifamily dwelling units in a range of unit sizes from studio up to 2-bedroom. Just over 14,000 square feet of commercial office and retail. The primary component of that is to remain within the Dixie frontage. That 2-story office building will remain there. That historic structure is to remain. And then we are programming retail space on the ground floor along Fern as well. The gross floor area of the building totals over 225,000 square feet, coming in right at 5.5 FAR. You see here the programming of the building. As we move from the ground floor, you have an activated residential lobby flanked by retail bays, and then followed by a 4-story parking podium, fully integrated parking, as well as service and loading operations to move those off the street. At the roof of the podium on the 5th floor, we have a fully programmed amenity deck, followed by the tower up to a rooftop pool and sun deck area, which is also highly amenitized. Here you see the regulatory site plan, and what we're calling out here in yellow, you see the residential lobby, and indicating in red the retail that is flanking that lobby, both on the Fern frontage as well as the entirety of the Dixie frontage there. Here you start to see the rendered site plan, and really the focus for the ground plane is the pedestrian realm. You know, here on Fern Street and Dixie is highly prioritized pedestrian realm. We are looking to improve that streetscape, which we'll speak to in more detail shortly. But key components here are maintaining and improving the on-street parking along Fern, increasing the street trees, expanding the sidewalk to a minimum 8 feet clear, and similar conditions of improvement on the Dixie frontage, maintaining and improving the landscape and creating more appropriate pedestrian circulation through that area and into the building. As we move up the building, you see the amenitized podium deck here. And as we move further, you see the rooftop garden and pool. And now here I will turn it over to Colin Grill with Spinor Works Office to walk you through some of the details of the building design. And I think that it starts here, and he'll speak in more detail to this, but this project, as you'll hear from staff as well, really began through a desire for historic preservation, both on the Dixie frontage and the maintaining that structure on Dixie, as well as this historic facade element and these white arches that you see here on the Fern frontage. So Colin, please take it over.
Good morning, everyone. Colin Grill from Spinor Works Partners, the architect for the project. Like Tyler said, At the beginning of this project, we had started meeting with the historic board, talking about this existing structure and its qualities towards it. From meeting with the historic board, we landed that the arches you see in the image here were the primary historic element that we were all trying to keep, both along Fern and along Dixie. So as we start to continue through some of the exterior renderings in this presentation, you'll see how we treated those, kept those, and tried to celebrate those in the design of the project. Tyler hit this pretty good, but this is a little more detailed ground floor plan. The areas in red are retail spaces. The areas in yellow are our ground floor amenity lobby. Back of house, trash, generator, transformers, all that stuff is in the top left of the page. You enter the garage off of Fern on the southeast corner of our project, and then you continue up the ramp along the north side of the garage. This is our second level plan, but also a typical garage plan. We wanted to highlight that there is a second story to the existing structure along Dixie. We intend on keeping that and keeping all of that office space there. And the garage continues up for a few levels, and then you reach our fifth floor amenity deck. This is where we start to introduce some units with some garden spaces, and then we have an amenity space to the west, and then a bunch of landscape. We meet all the landscape requirements that the city requires on this level. Going to our traditional or typical architectural floor plan, 6 through 21. It's a mix of studios 1s and 2s, 25% studios, 40% 1s, 25% 2s, and 10% 3 bedrooms in this project. Tyler also had a good graphic of this. This is our rooftop amenity, rooftop pool, a great view looking over the Atlantic Ocean, very active rooftop here on this project. These are some context elevations of the building, the surrounding areas. It continues to, be in scale with other projects around in our downtown master plan. This is a material board of what's on the building. If there's any questions on any specific materials, I'm happy to help describe those, but the renderings are really kind of what get the image across. So this is the view from Fern Street. You can see the existing historical arches along the frontage. In the design process, we went back and forth of how do we treat these and celebrate them. We didn't want to compete with what was there. We wanted to celebrate what was there. So we intentionally kind of had a glass facade that doesn't impose on the historic nature of the arches. And then the rest of the garage design starts to bleed off of that. And then a lot of the architecture from the garage, the banding you see along the outside of the garage continues up into the tower, trying to make a consistent design narrative through the project. This is the last rendering, kind of gives you an aerial view from the southwest, where you can see the garage in total, the amenities on the rooftop. You can see the landscaping on the top of the podium, on top of the roof, and some of those elements on the tower that are intended to break up the tower, but also relate to the garage architecture. And I think with that, we touched on this. With that, I'm turning it back over to Tyler or Hunter. Hunter's going to come up here from the ownership team.
Hello, Hunter Mansour with Wexford Development. I'm actually assisting Kent and John, who are with 315 Linton Jog, the owners of the site. I'd like to talk a little bit about the community benefits of this project, one of which being the housing in the downtown. So this project will increase the supply of housing in the downtown area to the tune of 81 multifamily dwelling units, a mix of studios 1s and 2s, and also 3 bedrooms. Most of these units are a little bit on the smaller side, and we did that so that we could help with the affordability of these units, given the fact that affordability is a main issue in not only this city, but society itself. And then there will also be a component of affordable housing because we're utilizing the TDR incentive program. We intend to utilize that program by having 20 units, and we'll get into a little bit more specifics, off-site. We haven't exactly found that location quite yet, but we've been in talks with various developers, looking at various other land sites to house these 20 units. There's obviously the benefit for employment. As Tyler and Colin had mentioned, there's a significant amount of commercial office and retail, a little over 14,000 square feet. These uses will increase the employment within the city. There's also the employment within the project itself for the residential. Usually projects of this size employ about 7 to 8 full-time employees, so we'll see that benefit as well. The other thing that will be a benefit to the city is the enhanced landscape and streetscape along Fern Street. As Tyler and Colin both noted, the sidewalk width, the street trees, the bike lane, the on-street parking, and the pedestrian experience all get enhanced. The one thing that isn't really shown here, and I had a chance to actually walk Fern Street this morning, is this will be another approved project along Fern Street. As we know, we're looking into the Fern Street connection. Rick, I don't know where that actually is right now. I think it's been fully approved, correct? I think so. We're working through it. Hopefully, Fern Street will connect all the way to Clear Lake, all the way to Flagler. So this will be another great project along that Fern Street corridor to go with the project that my team actually got approved in June, the 464 Fern, as well as the 515 Fern Street that Related got approved, and hopefully, fingers crossed, what Vanderbilt will do on the west side of Fern Street as well. So this will just be another Class A development along Fern Street and hopefully make it into a corridor that is one of the best in the city. Turn it back over to Tyler.
Thank you, Hunter. And to wrap up our presentation, I do want to bring you back to the technical components of the request. As summarized in the beginning, we are looking for DAC special review for the site plan approval itself for this 21-story mixed-use development. In addition, the request is utilizing the TDR incentive program within the QGD 10 to 25 district, and we are asking for 3 specific variances as part of this project. The first 2 relate to the active use requirement and the active use liner depth along Fern Street. We are meeting the requirement in its entirety on the ground floor, providing full activation of the Fern frontage. On floors 2 through 4 of the parking garage, the width of our garage, in order to accommodate proper circulation, limits our ability to provide active use there. And our final variance request is for relief from our rear setback, where we abut the shared alley with the Whitney, and I'll speak in detail to those here in just a moment. Prior to speaking to the variances, just to convey a little more detail of what Hunter had mentioned, we are located within the QGD 10 to 25 district, which allows a maximum height of 25 stories or 308 feet and an FAR of 5.5. We are hitting that FAR of 5.5, but we are well below the maximum height allowed in this district at only 21 stories and 214 feet. As part of the TDR incentive program, we are required to provide 20 workforce housing units, and as Hunter mentioned, those units will be off-site in areas designated as appropriate by the city. Right now, those units are going to be, 5 units will be distributed in the below 60% AMI, 5 between 60 and 80, and 10 in the 80 to 100% AMI range. Here we'll speak to the variances in a bit more detail. We've grouped variances 1 and 2 again because they both relate to the minimum active use requirement and the depth of that active use. So along Fern Street, as mentioned, we are requesting floors 2 through 5 to eliminate that requirement for the active use, and in the same way to eliminate the depth. And so to show you what that looks like on the plan, here's the ground floor plane where you can see how we are meeting the active use requirements. So the active use requirement ground plane would be 80% of the frontage, which is hit, and we're exceeding that here on Fern, and we're providing 100% of that frontage here along Dixie. And then this red line here you see demarcates the minimum depth requirement for those active uses. So where you see we're meeting those and exceeding those requirements here on the ground floor, we are asking for relief on floors 2 through 4 along the Fern frontage, where that active use liner would eliminate our ability to provide a functional garage. And so you see that reflected here on floors 3 and 4. And then as we return to the 5th floor, our activated podium, we were able to provide, again, activated uses there. Speaking to the rear setback, we do have a rear setback requirement of 5 feet along the north property line, which again abuts the private alley in the back, providing only service access to the Whitney and to this building. The existing conditions for the site are the primary factor driving the request for this variance. The existing building that is to remain along Dixie is currently set back only 6 inches or half a foot from that alley. And so in retaining that building, we do require 4.5-foot relief for that setback. Today, the entire existing structure is set back at that point along the north property line with the alley. So while this request does still require that variance, we are, getting closer to conformity with the code, with the majority of the building meeting the 5-foot setback requirement. And to close, I would like to say that, in coordination with staff over the last year in processing this through PPRC and working closely with Claudia and other staff, we are meeting all of the Downtown Action Committee standards for special review, as well as all of the various standards for all 3 variance requests. And that is reflected in your staff report. They're recommending approval subject to conditions, and we are in agreement with the conditions as proposed. Thank you, and we're here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the applicant. We want to hear from staff now. Thank you.
Good morning again. Claudia Babin, City Urban Designer. I would like to thank the applicant because they actually went through many different details about this project and their proposal, so it's going to make my presentation very short. We know about the project, we know where it's located, we know what is surrounding the project. We also know where this project is located in terms of the district, which is a Quadro Garden District. I do want to point out that the function of this district is a transition between the Quadro Business District and the waterfront. We also encourage development to respect the scale of pedestrian streets such as Dixie Highway and Olive Avenue. It is also encouraged to preserve existing structures, historic structures in the district, just like they're doing, and also encouraged to have a lot of high percentages of tree canopy and landscaping, because again, it's called the Quadro Garden District. As I mentioned before, the base zoning that we have is Quadro Garden District 10, which allows a maximum height of 10 stories. It also allows permitted uses of residential and commercial, and has a maximum floor area ratio of 275. But because they are also located within the transfer of development rights incentive area and includes an eligible historic building structure, which the applicant again is preserving, it is qualifying to be a receiving site of the Quadro Garden District 10 to 25. Tyler actually mentioned some of these numbers to you that are reflected in this table. And I just want to point out that the applicant is still required to transfer the amount of 112,873 square feet of TDRs to the site. This is a condition of approval for them to acquire that transfer and to also have those certificate of transfers before issuing a building permit. And because the project is also constructing over 25% of the total gross building area of residential uses, they also have to meet the requirements of the Downtown Master Plan Housing Incentive Program, which Tyler and the applicant, Tyler and Hunter also mentioned some of these details to you. Here you can see that they are required to reserve 22,575 square feet of gross building area for restricted units. They are proposing 20 restricted units. And the way that this program works is that they have 3 options. One of the options is providing them on site. The other option is providing them off site. And the third option that they have is actually paying a contribution into the Housing Trust Fund. So they have chosen to do it off-site, which Hunter mentioned that they're still looking for that place where they will be. So another condition of approval that we have here is related to that, is just to finalize those agreements and where those restricted units will be located, and to make sure that they meet all requirements of the housing program. The request, again, is the DAC approval of the special review and the approval of the 3 variances. The reason why they are subject to a special review is because they're seeking to utilize the incentive program, and that DAC is has the authority to approve variances. I'm going to go very briefly to the special standards for the special review standards. A lot of this information was provided to you by the applicant, but I want to highlight certain things of them. Related to the building, to the site and surroundings, we saw the context based on the renderings that they have. But we also know that this district allows new development to come through from 10 to 25 story buildings in height. Obviously, the preservation of the existing structure is consistent with the intent of the district. Reintroducing all this active use, which is retail, office, and residential amenities in the ground floor, is definitely improving the existing conditions. I do want to point out that as part of the city's Art Life WPB ordinance, the applicant has opted to contribute to the public art account instead of having it on site. In terms of circulation, again, one of the good benefits of this project is the reduction of vehicular access along Front Street. We currently have 3 driveways, and now it will be, with this proposal, it will be just 1. They provided most of this information, having a 4-level parking garage with 238 spaces. They also have added 3 or 4 on-street parking spaces, and they are using the alley for other service and loading operations. And they are also providing alternative modes of transportation incentives such as bicycle storage and bike racks along the street and inside the parking garage. And of course, for the pedestrian, having these sidewalks with a minimum of 8 feet and also landscaping with shade trees is also a benefit for the whole area. In terms of building design, the architect provided you with how they treated that based off of the preservation of the arches. They are meeting all the requirements related to facade articulation, and I do want to point out that the architectural treatment that they are providing to screen the non-active uses, which are the levels 2 to 4, they did it in a way that made it seem like there was active use behind it. So they tried to be the best to really have a cohesive building design overall. In terms of the public realm, they are required to provide private open space, and they're doing so by having a rooftop gardening in the level 5 and another one all the way to the top. And again, the improvements that they will be doing on the ground floor and all the streetscape will improve this area. The various requests that they mentioned, the first 2 are related to the active use, and these are from the section 94-132, table 460. This is eliminating this active use on the levels 2 to 4. But again, they are meeting all the requirements for the ground floor. The other variance is related to the rear setback. It's in the same section in the same table. This is again related to all the preservation of the structures and how they are integrating with the new structures, and also keeping those footprints, keeping those walls where they are to keep on preserving them. This is a little bit more information about the active use. The applicant already mentioned that they're meeting all of the active use requirements in the ground floor. They're just asking relief in the upper levels from the 2 to 4. And again, I do want to point out that even though they're not meeting the active use requirement for those levels, they try to build or design that facade in a way that looks like there's active use behind it. So they are still meeting that requirement of concealing the non-active use, which is parking from view. Tyler also explained this, why they are needing for that rear setback relief. Instead of having a 5 foot, they're requesting for a 0.5 feet. And this is related to where the 2-story building fronting South Dixie Highway is located, and also a little bit of encroachment from the 2 stairs from the parking garage. We understand that there are special conditions that exist in this particular lot and project because of the preservation of the existing structures. The applicant has worked into minimizing the the least variances that they can request and make a functional project, and they do meet all the variance standards of Section 9438. This project has also been part of the PPRC reviews. They have addressed all of their comments. They have provided the traffic performance standards letter. They have provided the school capacity ability determination letter, and also the Federal Aviation Administration determination letter too. As a requirement, all of them need to provide that. And obviously, this has also been sent out as a notification of this meeting, that this project will be in this meeting, to all property owners within a 500 feet radius of the project. The recommendation regarding the special review, staff recommends approval with the conditions based on the findings that the petition meets the standards as indicated in Section 9452B2 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations, with the following conditions. One is that they must obtain city approval of the transfer of development rights, and must possess all the certificate of transfer before issuing a building permit. The other one is that the applicant will work on finalizing the agreements related to the downtown master plan housing incentive program. And regarding the 3 variances, staff recommends approval based on the findings that the petition does meet all the 10 variances standards as outlined by Section 9438D6 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry, I need water.
Yeah, me too. No, thank you, Claudia.
Yeah.
I think it's all very clear. Before we move into public comment, just a couple of quick questions for staff. On the zoning map, the overall zoning map that's on sheet, I guess, page 26?
On the staff report?
So this is yeah, the quadrille district 10 to 25,
Correct, yes.
all the yellow.
Yep, so north to south, all of them can be up to 25.
Do you remember historically when the original RIP program, the residential incentive program started, was this district changed after that?
No,
Originally, it was like a 5-story district. And this might be going back like 20 years.
I might not be aware of it. 5-story?
Maybe Anna Maria remembers when
20
this
years
sort of
ago?
zone, when that original residential incentive program was initiated.
Yeah, I think the original master plan, this district was 5 stories. Then with the master plan update was rezoned to 10
Yeah, that
in
was
2009.
2010, yeah.
And then the incentive that allowed them to go to 25 was implemented after.
After the master plan change.
Yes, it was a revision to the TDR incentive that allowed receiving sites to be in this, along the quadrille corridor, to go to 25. It was along the proposal to allow the Jeff Green project to go to 25. And the requirement was to provide residential. If it was residential, they could go to 25. If they had residential and office, they could go to 30. And the FAR was increased to 5.5 with TDRs.
Okay, just want to make sure my memory is still working. And then the second question for staff, the two, or the applicant, either way, the 2 structures that are being described, are either one of those designated historic currently? The one on Dixie, the 2-story?
No, they're eligible, but not designated.
They're not designated, but they're eligible, okay. So it's more of a voluntary thing by the applicant to maintain these?
If they want to participate in the TDR program, they have to preserve them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's all. Any other clarification points? We'll have discussions, I'm sure, later. Okay, otherwise, we've heard from applicant, staff, and we'll go ahead and take public comment. I have 3 cards. If anybody else would like to speak, just pass one of these up, and we'll make sure you heard. Oh, we have 4. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so Thomas, you might help me on the last name here. Fegavarisi?
Don't sweat it, I can't pronounce it.
You can't?
Either. It being a Hungarian name, and unless you're native Hungarian born, you can't pronounce that GY correctly.
Okay.
Having been told that many times in Hungary myself.
All right, Thomas.
I'm an original owner at the Whitney.
Whitney, okay.
17 years. Oh, by the way, just let me stop and say thank you for the moment of silence. As a decorated veteran, and also someone who 23 years ago was covered in soot and trying to find his way to the Brooklyn Bridge to get off of Manhattan. I appreciate that very much. my concern, just to get to the essence of this, is with regard to the alleyway. There may be another multi-story residential building downtown where the only egress from the garage is into an alleyway. Perhaps that new assisted living building right off US 1 behind CVS. That may be an example of it. But otherwise, I think all of the major residential buildings have both ingress and egress from a street. It's a major, it's not an everyday problem for us, having been there for 17 years, but it is a concern because people tend to think they can leave their car there and go take their dog to the for dog grooming, and you can't get them. It's more than double parking. You can't get them. You're stuck. You can't get out of the garage, and so any variance that would make traffic in that alleyway more attractive, or where there'd be no ability. I mean, you're going to add X number of people immediately adjacent to us. I don't care about a loss of view or any of the other nonsense. I'm a very pragmatic person. All I want to know is when I want to get out of my garage, I can get out of that garage. And if one of these variances is going to make it more difficult to get out of that garage, I mean, we have a loading dock on that alleyway, and that's where our garbage trucks come and get take the refuse away and whatnot. And again, right now, they're availing themselves of the Proby area parking lot in order to get those garbage trucks in and backload those containers. And keep in mind, at the end of that alley, at the west end of that alleyway, it's really a tunnel, okay? Because part of our building is on the south side of the alleyway, okay? You've got all 8 floors are on, and so if that alleyway becomes more trafficked, and again, there's obviously not expert in that area, but there's a clearance for emergency vehicles that they may be, that may come into play there if, it's servicing any kind of emergency on that south side of our building, because, our building extends over that alleyway. It's on the south side, in part, one stack. So I'm really, I could care less. The building looks very nice. It's nice to see the city continue to move forward. That's what we want to do. But I think we need some very high scrutiny and some real thought as to the problem that might accrue to if we got a whole bunch of new people who, are using that alleyway for whatever reason, but they're going to be exiting, as I understand it, exiting and entering their garage from Fern. We don't have that option. We have to go into that alleyway to get out of the building. And there have been instances, there were doctors, there aren't any currently. I was on the board of the thing before it became a majority owned by, the person the person who will remain nameless. But in any case, we've had doctors in that building who were trying to get to the hospital because they were scheduled for an operation who could not get out of our garage because somebody who had either left their car there and that was it. They were stuck in the building. So either from a design standpoint or by some other methodology, I would like to see some attention be given to that issue of egress. I mean, we enter from US 1, the garage, okay? But we can't go back out that way. Now, could there be a design change paid for by this developer that would allow us to have both entry and egress from US 1? So we could eliminate that tie-up point in the alleyway? That's another story. But at the moment, that is my big concern. That that's not a fantasy. That this has happened where I've seen, medical people who are, quite upset that they can't get to where they're supposed to be. So that's my objection. Otherwise, I'm very happy to have a neighboring building to the south. It looks very, I like the design very much. I think it's going to be, we think we have, and the occupants of the new adjacent building, I think will feel the same way. We've got the best location in town. I mean, all it takes, having lived in urban areas around the world, I can tell you that all it takes is a difference of a couple of blocks to be absolutely delighted with where you are versus something, that it may be only 3 or 4 blocks away, but feels like it's in a whole different city. So that's my concern.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Just a real quick response from staff on that. Just let us know the engineering and how that was vetted with Public Works, et cetera, for the circulation.
You want to speak to that?
Oh, here we go. Here's our engineer. Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to jump in front of staff here, but for the record, Brian Kelly, traffic engineer with Simmons & White, and I appreciate Thomas's, won't say the last name either, but his concerns regarding that alley. So this has been a thoughtful process. We did review it, and frankly, we're actually going to make the situation better. All of the residential traffic is entering and exiting off of Fern Street. So 99% of the vehicles are on Fern Street. We have more than adequate capacity there. We've gone over the driveway circulation and everything there. The only vehicles that will be utilizing that back alley is really back of house stuff, whether that's garbage utilities, and that's existing right now for the current property. And the reason I say we're actually going to make it better is because right now, I've been back there, I've walked behind that alley. There are parts of it that are very tight because that existing building is right up against that alley. We're actually, through that setback, we're actually increasing the width of that alley for the majority of it. There's still a little bit of a tighter point by US 1, but the area where it's more restricted right now, we're actually going to be widening that, so that alley is actually going to get a little bit wider. And for our loading and back of house operations, we actually have a cutout into our site so it becomes off of the alley. So in short summary here, all of the residential traffic is going to be off Fern Street, and we're going to have minimal, simply back of house utility traffic that would be utilizing the alley, and all that will be able to pull off into our site off of the alley. So I think actually from a traffic circulation standpoint for the existing facility, it's certainly going to be as good, if not maybe even better for those reasons.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, thanks. Yes.
real fast. Mr. Kelly, so on the plan, it reads almost as if there's 19.5 feet of availability now for the majority of the building, except for the historic one portion of the building out at Fern. So with all the traffic coming in off Fern, I think you've allayed the concern that there's actually going to be more space there at the end of this project than there would be today. So that's loosening things up for you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for clarification. So, yeah. Perfect.
During construction, what are your plans in regard to that alley?
So I'm going to defer to the rest of the team on that. We are required for any building permit, we have to work with the city, and we have to do a construction management plan. It's actually within your code, and the reason it's in your code for these exact reasons, to make sure we maintain circulation and safety and health for everyone surrounding there. So I have not seen a construction management plan yet, and it's normally done after this process when we get to building permit, but that's when we work with the city and develop that before we actually move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, next comment card, Joe Pierman, 410 Evernia Street.
Good morning. My name is Joe Pierman. I am the general manager of the Whitney Condominium, 410 Evernia Street. I am also the general manager of the Strand Condominium, 255 Evernia Street, and City Palms, which is 480 Hibiscus Street. I was asked to come here today by many of our residents, and in fact, we have a bulk buyer in all three properties by the name of Jeff Green. He asked me to come here as well to learn more about this and to, first off, welcome our potential new neighbors. And it's a great place, and it's looking forward to working with you folks all through your construction and thereafter. But wanted to object to the variances and basically wanted the city to stick with the current ordinances in place. And we've learned more now about the back of alley, which was our primary concern, because we do have a lot of activity back there. That is our exit, as Tom went through everything, that is our exit, and that is where our garbage and our move-in, move-outs, all through that loading dock. It is very active. We are a 210-unit building right there, of which it is predominantly a rental building throughout its history of the past years. It is a condominium, but we have a lot of move-in, move-outs of all kinds of professionalism or private owners or private renters moving in and out, which is a very difficult situation to maneuver back there. So those are our concerns, and that's what the ownership asked me to present here today. And again, thank you for answering everything, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, next up, Samantha.
I'll pass it this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. And then, wow, okay, we got one here, some fancy writing. Barry O'Brien, is Barry here? 410 Evernia Street.
Good morning. My name is Barry O'Brien. My former member of the DAC, I might add, quite a few years ago. My late wife and I bought the unit that I live in the Whitney now 17 years ago. And everything that I wanted to mention, Tom mentioned, so I'll be as brief. I liked the project, okay? I have 17 years of walking dogs around that building, and when I look at this, I go, this is going to be a nice improvement. My concern is how it will affect the access and egress from the Whitney loading dock. When I was in college, I had jobs driving every kind of truck you can imagine, and I can sympathize with the drivers trying to go in and out of our loading dock and understand 2/3 of our building are rental units. While it's a condo, we have one owner who owns them and rents them out. So we have a lot of moving vans going in there, a lot more than if it was just condos, okay? So there's a lot of traffic there. The trucks use that parking lot from the parole board, and I don't know how the building is going to be built in such a way that they're going to be able to access it. The building, the egress from the garage, am I correct that the building next to the alley and the Ferndex building, they're not involved in this at all, right? They're not going to be involved in construction. There's not going to be any construction over them. They're not going to be demolished or anything. Is that correct?
That's what I understand, is the two buildings facing Dixie are to remain.
They just stay, right? The construction will be around.
Is that correct? Yeah,
Okay.
we're getting the, yeah.
Okay, so, my concern would be to make sure that we have access or egress from the Whitney when any construction is going on in the back there. But other than that, I think it's a great project. It looks very nice, and I hope we can work it all out.
Okay, great. Thanks for taking the time to speak, Barry. Okay, are there any other comments from anyone in the audience regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public discussion of this project, and then we'll move back into some executive discussion. If anybody has any specific questions or comments they'd like to address to the applicant or staff, we could take those now.
I have a question. On the west side, South Quadrille, is there going to be articulation to that facade? Because it looks pretty blank on that first level, on the ground floor podium.
Yes, thank you very much. There will be facade articulation on all four sides. We are treating all four sides of the building. Yeah.
Okay. Have you thought about, on Furnace Street, a push-pull of where the historic arches are, where it would almost create like a circulation for the pedestrians, so you'd push it in, and then you'd have shading? Had that been thought about?
We did look at that, and if I say anything wrong, Colin, smack me and jump up here. But in preserving that historic facade feature and in dealing with the north-south width of the lot, in order to accommodate circulating in the parking garage, we needed to essentially build that facade at the line of the existing facade. And so we're increasing the sidewalk width there, so we're losing a little bit of space in that sidewalk width. And so there was no further room to push the building back and still have an effective circulation in the garage.
I see. And on the parking garage, is that naturally ventilated or mechanically ventilated?
It's intended to be naturally ventilated, correct? Mechanically ventilated.
Mechanically. Have you thought about naturally ventilated? Because it would be, savings in energy costs. You could put screens with vertical fins and things like that.
Colin, I defer to you on that.
It's in the nature of screening the entire garage and enclosing it. Building code will require you to mechanically ventilate it. If you naturally ventilate it, it's open, you'll see the cars. We intentionally didn't want to do that with the active use requirement and screening the garage in that manner. So by default, you kind of have to mechanically
I mean, you
ventilate.
could screen it in a way that you wouldn't see the cars. I mean, there's ways of creating articulated screens and vertical fins, or, like a mesh of sort, but, okay,
Yeah, that was our stance on it. So.
interesting. Thanks.
Oh, was that it, Brian? Yep, okay. Anything? Mike? No? Brian?
Just a quick question for staff. In terms of the workforce housing units, how do you envision those coming online? Will it be to incorporate it into another project, or is it one that, it sounded like they're going to be finding them here or there?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any kind of,
We haven't discussed any type of locations, but we definitely want it to be on the downtown or any other specific areas that are called out by the downtown housing program. Obviously, when this is in construction, the requirements are for those restricted units to be in construction too. And they can be part of another development, or they can be their own development too.
right? Okay, thank you.
Anything, Sam? No? Greg?
No.
No? Nothing? Wow, okay. I guess I have a couple of comments. Yeah, I think it's a very nice project. In general, it's very well sited. The placement of the tower, I think, is going to give a lot of breathing room to the Whitney to the north. The preservation of the structures on Dixie, I think, is a nice move. Colin, we had some meetings at your office. Can you, a couple of quick questions on the facade? Maybe just bring up that rendering of the south facade. I applaud your gesture to maintaining the historic structures in that facade, and we had a discussion about the integration of the arcade on the south facade, sort of to highlight. Now, what's the material all around the facade? Is that a metal or is that a glazing?
Here, I'll pull up the elevation. So the material around the facade that wraps the facade is a glazing, but then the material that center element that wraps around is all Lucabond paneling. The metal 1, metal 2, metal 3 that you see on the chart.
Maybe can you go to that perspective view that's like from the southwest looking to the northeast? Yeah, that one. So the material all around, that's a metal around the arcade, or is
It's a glazing that surrounds the facade.
that's all glass? Okay.
Correct.
But it's just a spandrel glass, and that's all you're
Correct.
parking with?
Correct.
And then the flanking ones, again, it's all that material in the same plane? The metal and the glaze?
There is slight articulation. You have some restrictions on, again, the parking discussion, the width of the parking and keeping our setbacks, but there is minor articulation. There's other diagrams from the submittal that show how this meets the city's code. They do have a lot of requirements for slight articulation and elevations of the building that need to meet those requirements. So all of those elements meet those requirements.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, it's very planar. It would be interesting to get a little bit of articulation or relief in some of those panels, whether it is some perforated panels in conjunction, but in any event. I think still back to our original discussions when we had our ex parte communication, there still seems to be, a big disconnect from the podium and the tower. I think it is what it is. I think probably the benefits outweigh any, negative architectural, integration from the tower to the podium. The tower is pretty benign, it's just a whole series of stacks, just, without any emphasis or articulation. It's sort of an extruded floor plate from 6 to 21, whatever it is. But I think in general, it's a, elegant building. Maybe you can still fool around with that whole facade, but in general, applaud you guys for, maintaining some of the historic fabric. I don't have any objection to the variances. I think we've seen the same variance on the upper level active uses. I think you have all the active use on the ground levels, which is the most important. I'm guessing all the landscape, we didn't really touch too much on the landscape design, but I'm guessing it's all in compliance with the city standards? Yeah, okay.
It's 10 trees.
Yeah, that's correct. We're meeting and exceeding the minimum landscaping for the streetscape. That's correct. And then we're actually providing almost double the required private open space within the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Jess, so with all those concessions that you're making for your, the TDRs, everything for your additional density and height, I think should be beneficial to the city. So I don't really have any objections or any other real specific commentary. I think it's a very nice project. Any other comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Maybe.
Is this for the, granting of the variance?
The special review and then
the special review?
variance component. That's on page.
So are we doing the special request first? Special review? Or are we doing the variances first? Variances? Yeah, but I have the granting of the special review first.
Yeah,
And, okay. Move to approve granting the special review. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 23-10 as listed in the staff report dated September 5th, 2024, with the following conditions. 1, the proposed development must obtain city approval for the transfer of development rights and must possess the certificate of transfer before issuing any building permit. 2, the applicant will work with the city and CRA to finalize agreements and meet all requirements per section 94-134 Downtown Master Plan Housing Incentive Program prior to issuance of any building permit. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing along with the application submitted constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings that fact that the special review requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-54B2.
Okay, that's the motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Anyone make a motion regarding the variance requests?
Motion to approve granting a variance. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the variance requests included in DAC case number 23-10 as follows. 1, a variance request from section 94-132, table 4-60 regarding the minimum active use liner of 60% along Fern Street for the levels 2 to 5 or up to 68 feet. The variance request is to eliminate the active use liner to 0% for levels 2 to 4. 2, a variance request from section 94-132, table 4-60 regarding the minimum active use liner depth of 15 feet for levels 2 to 5 or up to 68 feet. The variance request is to eliminate the active use liner depth to 0 feet for levels 2 to 4. 3, a variance request from section 94-132, table 4-60 regarding the minimum rear setback of 5 feet from the ground to the 25th floor or up to 308 feet. The variance request is to reduce the rear setback to a half foot, 0.5 feet for levels 1 to 4. This variance approval is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division staff report dated September 5th, 2024, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the Downtown Master Plan and the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. This motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted, which constitutes competent substantial evidence that the standards in section 94-38D6 have been met.
Got it. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second. Any other discussion or all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries too. All right. Thanks again, the applicant and staff, for again working together and putting all this hard work in before we see this. So good luck with the project. Thank you. All right, so let's see. That's the only project of the day. Code revision cases. Any unfinished business or any new business? Maybe could we just go back to this construction phasing, what's required by the city for these larger projects that are utilizing public streets for the construction activity? How is all that vetted in a construction management plan?
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear.
Just want to talk about the question that came up earlier on the construction management plans and use of the public right-of-ways for these larger construction projects that block off streets for a certain amount of time. I'm sure Mr. Green could answer that.
Sure. Several years ago, the city adopted an ordinance that basically requires any project with a value in excess of 2 million square feet has to prepare a construction management plan. That construction management plan specifically addresses where construction workers are going to park during construction, how the site's going to be developed, where materials, where facilitation of construction will take place. So it's pretty detailed. That goes through our engineering department. Part of that obviously is also an MOT plan that talks about parking. We define routes where trucks can come in and out to build the project. So again, we require that. We originally had a lower threshold. We increased it. I think originally it was $1 million. We had single-family homes that were required to do construction management plans, so we bumped that up to $2 million. But it's something that we take very seriously because we want to make sure, particularly in the downtown, it becomes problematic. So typically what will happen, we're having a lot of construction, as you may see or will be seeing, in the Curry mixed-use district. So what a lot of people are doing now, where they're utilizing some of the property, for instance, that Jeff Green might own, and they're staging on that property. Alba is under construction now. They are leasing a vacant lot, 2 lots to the north of that project. People are parking there, walking to the job site. So it's a requirement that we, again, anything over $2 million in value. And again, it's trying to eliminate the chaos that may be caused during construction. We are also trying as best we can. We can't do it all the time, but we're also trying to, again, continue to increase the public realm, keep sidewalks open wherever we can. So it's something that we discuss with our engineering department, and we get involved because our building inspectors are typically looking at the job site.
That's a challenge, because I remember back when we heard that Roxy's pool deck project.
Oh, that's a totally different animal, yeah.
That was, I don't remember the discussion ever coming up on these tight, dense, downtown sites. I think
That
Clematis
was
closed.
unique because we actually had to close Clematis Street to bring a crane in, and again,
Yeah,
we
but that
were
was like,
adamant.
was that
And are they
2
going to
months or more?
reclose it? Because they're not done.
They had to close it to bring a crane up to actually facilitate the placement of a pool on the top deck of Roxy's.
Right, but are they going to bring the crane back?
There was talk that they weren't finished. I'm not sure if they're going to do it. But again, we originally looked at trying to mobilize from the alley, and that wasn't effective. We couldn't do it. So I'm not sure if they have to come back with a crane.
For this present project? No?
I think they're done with what they had to do.
What do you envision as far as the alleyway for this present project? Are they going to be closing that at all?
I don't think they can, as a result of the fact that they have trash pickup utilizing the alley and other things. But again, that's something that we'll discuss with engineering, certainly with our Public Works Department. Public Works is always at the table when we have our Plans and Plats Review Committee. So when the developer comes in to discuss their plans, they're at the table, so that's something that we always
One thing that
discuss.
always surprises me is I go to New York City and they're building skyscrapers and they're not closing off roads to do that. Yet every time we build anything downtown West Palm Beach, we're closing off the roads for years. I don't understand why we can't do what they do in other cities.
Yep.
Well, when we look at sites like, I think it's the Vine that's going up now, Clematis 500 block at Quadrille Place. They've kind of taken over the street. And I think it's like kind of
512
the issues,
Clematis,
like you give them an inch, if you give them the, they're going to take as much as they can for as long as they can, because they don't have any other staging area on the property, on that site.
Yeah, that was a very tight site.
But we're allowing them basically to build setback to setback anyway, so it's sort of a
Right.
little bit of a conundrum.
Just to say, with Roxy's and with this other development that is happening on Quadro and Clematis, there's other construction happening on the other side.
Well, there was the FPL.
That's right.
So it
Yeah.
becomes like super difficult with the alley and accommodating all these different projects in construction that are going at the same
Right.
time.
I agree with board member Bax, but if you're going to bring that crane back, you're going to cause consternation with the chair. I'm just saying, it's his front door.
Yeah. Well, no, in general, because I think there was over 3 months of closure for, I mean, that probably made a lot of people unhappy about the access there for sure. Okay, well, in any event, I'm sure you guys address it. I'm just curious what the process, all right, if that's the threshold, $2 million. Okay. Does anybody have any other items they want to discuss while we're here?
Yeah, is there any update on the TCEA discussion?
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss there. I don't know where to start. So let me begin by referencing House Bill 479 that was recently adopted. What House Bill 479 said was that any jurisdiction that issues building permits can collect impact fees. So historically, as the board I'm sure is aware, when a project like the one you just approved comes in for building permit, they go through a pretty extensive review by our plan reviewers. Prior to a building permit being issued, they have historically gone to Palm Beach County. They have to demonstrate that they have paid a roadway impact fee. They come back to the city with a document indicating that that fee has been paid. Per House Bill 479, that legislation now says that the cities that issue the building permits can collect the building fees. So there was talk about Fern Street as an example. This was a plan we pitched probably 12 years ago to the county. It's now coming to fruition a decade later. But that's going to improve access in our downtown, relieve some of the traffic off of both Okeechobee and Banyan. But we're struggling for ways to fund it. That's probably a $30 million plus improvement. So on September 3rd, a week ago Tuesday, City Commission adopted Resolution 174-24. That resolution directed our city attorney, Kimberly Rothenberg, to send a letter to the county basically indicating that effective October 1 of this year, we are going to start collecting our own impact fees. With that provision, we now have a say in how that money is spent. The House bill also says that, 479 says that you have to have a mobility in place by October 1st of 2025. So we began work on a mobility plan citywide several months ago. So that is underway. So we're meeting actually 1 o'clock today to discuss this in more detail. The county has put together a committee because they will also be working on a mobility plan, but it's the city's intention that come October 1st, we hopefully will be collecting impact fees. The mobility study itself, we probably won't have completed for another 3 or 4 months. So I suspect that, and this is what we'll discuss this afternoon, I suspect that the fees that we collect will put that into escrow for the time being. What we are still trying to resolve, to get to your question, is how that impacts both the county transportation concurrency management system, whereby the county reviews every single project that is proposed within the city. They do a traffic review. The city does its own traffic review as well, but that was a voter referendum that took place more than 25 years ago. We get a letter from the county that says, yes, this project meets traffic concurrency, county traffic concurrency. In some cases, they'll recommend an improvement, whether it's a right turn lane, left turn lane, what have you. With 479, it begs the question, does that impact both the county TPS methodology that we've been using, and does it impact the transportation concurrency exception area? So that's something that we're continuing to flush out, working with a consultant, and seeing what impact that legislation has on both our TCA and the TPS. I don't have an answer for you now. We suspect that we should be able to determine what we can and cannot do with our traffic downtown. At the same time, as Claudia mentioned at the outset, the bids for an updated downtown master plan are due today. We did the original downtown master plan in '95. We updated in 2017. So this will be our first, 2007. This will be our first update since then. And part of what the consultant will be looking at, working with not only city staff, but also with our traffic consultant, is the impacts of the TCEA. So I think a lot's going to happen over the next 2 months. I think we, like many other cities, are going to have to flush out these issues. I was just at the state planning conference and spoke to several representatives from other cities and how they're handling this. So we'll certainly report back to this board once we have answers to some of these questions.
Rick, on Board Member Grace's question, is this the same issue that the Gardens had sued over?
Yes.
And is that the impetus now for the county to start working with the jurisdictions, knowing that they're tired of paying concurrency and all kinds of impacts?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope.
For cities out west?
Yeah, that's the hope. And Natalie Crowley, my counterpart at Palm Beach Gardens, just left me a message yesterday afternoon. So we've been talking as well. House Bill 479 was not in place when the Palm Beach Gardens and the county entered into litigation.
Right.
So hopefully this provides a little bit more clarity for them. The county, to their credit, they're putting together a committee and they're trying to address this comprehensively. There was a meeting held Tuesday. I believe there's another one next Friday, a Zoom call that I'll be joining. So again, we'll hopefully have more information in the weeks.
Keep the information flowing, because this is a critical issue for us downtown,
Absolutely.
obviously.
Absolutely.
So, quick question. For my clarification, actually, I used to be abreast of this situation. Now, I'm not as familiar with it. So, would that bill just now, for clarification, allow the city to keep a portion of, for example, the road impact fee for their use? And I know the county position was to actually keep road impact fee, but allow city, their recommendation was for cities to adopt a mobility fee on top of the impact fee. So now that bill now is sort of allowing city to keep what possibly their fair share to maintain their roads way.
Right, so what House Bill 479 said is that the cities are encouraged to enter into interlocal agreements with other cities as well as Palm Beach County. So I'll use an example. At the very south end of the city, we have a project called 8111 South Dixie, which will consist of retail and a residential project. It's right on the border to Lake Worth. Hypothetically, if there were to be an impact on traffic on South Dixie within Lake Worth, we would enter into an interlocal agreement with the city of Lake Worth, and we would say there's a 20% impact on your roadway system. So when we collect the impact fee, we're going to give you 20% of those dollars. That's how it's supposed to work. But it's important to note that when we say mobility, it's not just roadway. The roadway impact fee has simply been a question of roadway capacity. As you all know, West Palm Beach, for the most part, is built out. We really don't have room to widen lanes. So our mobility fee is going to address transit, it's going to address mobility, it's going to address sidewalks, bicycle lanes, all of these other factors. So in some cases, we'll be looking to expand the widths of sidewalks, adding bike lanes. That will all go into the mobility plan. And then the intent is really to share those resources, share those revenues when they're collected. The big difference being, of course, that we will collect the impact fee and then distribute it per those interlocal agreements that are created.
And sorry, one more question for me. Just in terms of that mobility plan, how's that coming? Do we think we're going to be on track for the October 1st, 2025
We'll
date?
definitely make October 1st. Our hope and target is that we complete maybe sometime by April or May. If we can finish it sooner, we will do it. We have a consultant team called Alta on board. They started working on a mobility fee for downtown several months ago. We are now expanding that scope to include the entire city. But we'll certainly have it well before the October deadline, and the hope is to have it by the spring or early summer of next year.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Rick. All right, anything else? No, we good? All right, well, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.